Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so you can follow along. In accordance with our group conscience on October 16th, we will also be posting our podcast on YouTube. We feel that this is an effective way to carry our message to those seeking recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. Our YouTube channel is now up and running, and it will be posted in the chat in a little while.
And we also have another announcement. Good evening, family. My name is Jamie. I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic, and this weekend I will be going to Area 64 fourth quarter assembly. It will be a voting assembly, and we will see who we're going to vote in as our trusted servants for the next year. I will also be taking grapevines in Lavinia to the Grapevine Committee, which this group has so generously decided to give out as part of service to carry into corrections. And also will be taking with me 25 of the big book dictionaries to the servants of corrections, for them to be able to use that as a resource. So thank you so much for your willingness to be able to provide outside of our group and help in the state of Tennessee and help in Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole. And did you already, did you, go ahead, Trish, blah.
Tonight's recap will start on page 3 at the line reading, "My drinking assumed," and will end on page 5, where it says, "Lack of perspective seemed near being just that." And then our study tonight will start on page 5, where it starts at "Renewing my resolve," and will end on page 8, "Alcohol was my master."
And welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of silent meditation, which really isn't silent because we have the monks after all, followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish, and I'm not sure either one of us said that yet. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted, and sharing is to not distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. A friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share. We will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some of the suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And enjoy your time with God, folks. If you would like to please join me in our family's fog light prayer, it's on your screen in front of you. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And let's have our secretary's report.
Hi, my name is Nicole, and I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Marilyn to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Marilyn.
Hi, family and friends. My name is Marilyn, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered but not cured. That presents a conflict with some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem in the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body, page 23. We are now staying where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time at the Global Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of that, this chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements of sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way, 25% sobered up after some relapse, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time? And those new to AA? And then the recovered alcoholics? Yeah. These are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week? Art.
You've got one.
Yeah, Art. Yay. Hi, Art.
Nice.
Boy, that's beautiful. Congrats, Art. Yay. That's beautiful. Wonderful.
Congratulations, Art.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody.
If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th edition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in the chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you so much, Marilyn and Nicole, for your service tonight. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility. Ladies, we have some new folks here, some new ladies here with us tonight. Please feel free to send them your numbers in the chat.
And thank you, Jamie. Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 10. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 11. Please refer to page 562 of our book, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Good evening, family. Xavier, recovered alcoholic. All right, the short form of Tradition 11 notes that our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. Long version says our relation with the general public should be characterized by personal anonymity. We think A ought to avoid sensational advertising. Our names and pictures as A members ought not be broadcast, filmed, or publicly printed. Our public relations should be guided by the principle of attraction rather than promotion. There is never need to praise ourselves. We feel it's better to let our friends recommend us. In the 12 by 12, it gives an example of how, unlike other institutions, like if somebody's running for politics or something of that nature, we talk about all the great things about your particular institution. A does the opposite. It keeps the anonymity, and it tries to do it through attraction rather than promotion. And it really instead notes like the outcome, the manifestations, and keeps everything else secret. And in doing so, what happened is the press was actually really attracted to AA because it was unlike other institutions that are always trying to get all those accolades that you normally try to get if you're dealing with media. So it's really worked well in the past. It talked about how there were 100 or so members who broke anonymity and thought that was for the old school people when AA started and wasn't relevant, and how AA as a whole sent letters to a lot of news agencies and media agencies, and the media really respected it. And in a way, sometimes these media agencies understood much better than members of Alcoholics Anonymous. They were great in anonymity, how important anonymity really was, and it's really meant to safeguard AA as a whole. I've always found there's some confusion. One of the confusing things was, do we share our whole name? So I've been in meetings where they share their whole name and they make it a point to note that anonymity is not, with regard to the traditions, it's not to hide each other from each other. It's just, at least Tradition 11 specifically, is more like at the press level and at the radio level, but not necessarily towards each other. And then there's a confusion of, do I present that I'm in AA? One side you might say, well, Bill was constantly talking in the media, and he was representing Alcoholics Anonymous. He was the poster child for Alcoholics Anonymous, but then a lot of people, especially in the spotlight today, go out of their way to not specifically talk about Alcoholics Anonymous and really respect Tradition 11 when it comes to press. And then others don't. The most recent is Matthew Perry. He went out of his way not to. He noted in a 2022 book that he's attended 6,000 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and a rehab 15 times. This year, I think it was, he told the New York Times in an article he's not a huge fan of secrecy as it pertains to Alcoholics Anonymous, where he sponsors 3 members. He explained, it suggests that there's a stigma that we have to hide. This is not a popular opinion, by the way. So it's an interesting question. In my opinion, it was a big mistake, and he's dead. And he probably died, if not of a heart attack, of a drug overdose, in my opinion. And it certainly doesn't make AA look good. If Matthew Perry is the poster boy for Alcoholics Anonymous, I think we're all in trouble. Again, just my opinion. So I think that's a really good example of somebody that likes to talk a little bit too much, and I get it. But in the 12 by 12, it talks about how we really shouldn't use Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'll get the exact wording. This tradition is a constant and practical reminder that personal ambition has no place in AA. In it, each member becomes an active guardian of our fellowship. And rather than, say, hey, look at me, I'm an AA, this is so great, we shouldn't be ashamed, really noting that, at least on the press level, it's really important that we not align our personal self, our personal image with Alcoholics Anonymous. That, and I like the idea of, I can talk about that I'm sober, that I'm in some type of recovery, but keeping A's name out of it. And it's not for me, it's really to protect the institution as a whole. There's the obvious that I might not be the best example of AA and that I might hurt its image, but I think overall, and Matthew Perry is just an easy one to pick on because he's most recent. But there are many, 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 many examples. I think Ebert was a big one a few years ago where he kept talking about AA and he broke anonymity right before he passed away. It can hurt the institution as a whole, and that's got to be the number one thing. And I think in the 12 by 12 it noted that the press often recognizes that much easier than individual members of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share and be of service.
Thank you so much, brother. And you will be coming in with closing us out with Tradition 12 next week, and then we will have a new traditionalist coming in after that. And now it's time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. What follows are some of the things we often hear, along with what the Big Book has to say. One of those things that we often hear is, there are no musts in the book. And Pinky is going to come in and tell us what it says on page 152 in the second paragraph. Welcome, Pinky.
Hi, Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. I know I must get along without liquor, but how can I?
Thank you.
And as we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study, we use the Big Book study guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight we're going to start our recap on page 3, and that's going to be read tonight by William. And then that will be followed by our study portion, which will be read by Lynn.
After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back where our study portion began with Lynn. The questions will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply one-sentence answers split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we're going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, observations based on what we just read. If you had spiritual experiences with this information, please, by all means, share your experience, strength, and hope. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, we will let you know. The timer beep, hold up a cute looking little dog, maybe the buzzards will fly around behind my head. One way or another, you will know that the time is up.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example, with your sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages read or the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of our co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
So before we get started, we're going to take a look at how we arrived at this point. We didn't just open the book to a random page tonight and say, let's read pages 5 through 8. The study started back in January of 2020 as an in-person meeting in Jamie's living room. And then when COVID hit, it closed down for a little while, like all meetings did, started back up as hybrid, and then evolved into being Zoom only. And by being Zoom only, or even when it was hybrid, we have the ability to reach people all the way across the country and all the way around the world, because we do have friends who visit us from other countries as well. And we start on the title page, and then we read all through page 164. We read page by page and line by line and discuss each and every line. And then we look at Dr. Bob's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and we also spend 2 weeks on the traditions. Through it, built into the study, we visit the spiritual experience 3 times, but then we also have a week dedicated just to the spiritual experience. So it's a 94-week study, and we are now in the middle of our 3rd year. And, the longer I come, the more I learn. And so I just plan on keep coming back and to see what more I can learn as we keep going on. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, 3rd season, not 3rd year. We're fixing to move into our 4th year. We will need about 5 hands raised to be answer readers after our study portion is read, for those who are willing. There goes one. Thank you, Pinky. Thank you, Art. Thank you, William. And on that note, we'll let a couple more of you think about it. Thank you, Christy. Good to see you tonight. William, go ahead and come on in and read our recap, my friend. Welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you. My name is William Alcoholic. My drinking assumed a more series of proportion, continue all day and almost every night. The remonstrance of my friend terminated in a room, and I became a lone wolf. There was many unhappy scenes in our sumptuous apartment. There had been no real infidelity or loyalty to my wife, helped at times by extreme drunkenness, kept me out of those straits. In 1939, I contacted God. We went at once to the country. My wife and I applauded while we started out to overtake Walter Hagen. Liquor caught up with me much faster than I came up behind Walter. I began to be jittery. In the morning, God permitted drinking every day and every night. It was fun to roam around the exclusive course which had inspired such awe in me as a lad. I acquired the impeccable coat of tan one sees upon the well-to-do. The local banker watched me whirl fat checks in and out of his till with amused skepticism. Abruptly, in October 1929, hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After some of those days off in Burnham, I wobbled from my hotel bar to the brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market closed. The ticker was still chatting. I was staring at an inch off the tape, which bore the inscription XYZ-32. It had been 52 that morning. I was finished, so was the many friends. The paper reported men jumping to death on the towers on High Finance. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. My friends had dropped $7 million since 10 o'clock. So what? Tomorrow was another day. As I drank, the old fierce determination to win came back. Next morning, I telephoned my friend in Montreal who had plenty of money, left and thought I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon, returning from Elba. So, no St. Helen for me, but drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend had to let me go. This time we stayed broke. Went to live with my wife's parents. I found a job, then lost it as the result of a brawl with a taxi driver mercilessly. No one could guess that I was to have no real employment for 5 years. I hardly draw a sober breath. My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. I became a welcome hang on at the brokerage place. Liquor ceased to be luxury. It became necessity. Bathtub gin, 2 bottles a day, and often 3. Got to be routine. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s, and I would pay my bill at the bar and the delicatessen. This went endless, and I began to wake very early in the morning, shaking violently. A tumbler full of gin, followed by a half dozen of bottles of beer, would be required. If I was to eat any breakfast, nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation. And there was periods of sobriety which renewed my wide hope. Gradually, things got worse. The house was taken over by the mortgage holders. My mother-in-law died. My wife, father-in-law became ill. Then I got some promising business opportunities. Stock were at its lowest point of 1932, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profit. Then I went on prodigiously business, and the chances vanished. I woke up. This had to stop. I saw I could not take so much as one drink. So I was through forever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises, but my wife happily observed that this time I meant business, and so did I. Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. There had been no fight. What had been my high resolve? I simply did not know. It had not even come to mind that someone had. It had not even come to mind. Someone had pushed a drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? I began to wonder. But such an appalling lack of perspective seemed nearly near being just that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Thank you for your service. And Lynn, come on in with this week's study.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lynn. I'm an alcoholic. Renewing my resolve, I tried again. Some time passed and confidence began to be replaced by cocksuredness. I could laugh at the gin mills. Now I had what it takes. One day I walked into a cafe to telephone. In no time I was beating on the bar, asking myself how it happened. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time, but I might as well get good and drunk then, and I did. The remorse, horror, hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity. I hardly dared cross the street lest I collapse and be run down by an early morning truck, for it was scarcely daylight. An all-night place supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale. My writhing nerves were stilled at last. A morning paper told me that the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought. Should I kill myself? No, not now. Then a mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that. So 2 bottles and oblivion. The mind and body are marvelous mechanisms for mine endured this agony 2 more years. Sometimes I stole from my wife's slender purse when the morning terror and madness were on me. Again, I swayed dizzily before an open window or the medicine cabinet where there was poison, cursing myself for a weakling. There were flights from city to country and back as my wife and I sought escape. Then came the night when the physical and mental torture was so hellish, I feared I would burst through the window, sash and all. Somehow I managed to drag my mattress to the lower floor, lest I suddenly leap. A doctor came with a heavy sedative. Next day, found me drinking both gin and sedative. This combination soon landed me on the rocks. People feared for my sanity, and so did I. I could eat little or nothing when drinking, and I was 40 pounds underweight. My brother-in-law is a physician, and through his kindness and that of my mother, I was placed in a nationally known hospital for mental and physical rehabilitation of alcoholics. Under the so-called belladonna treatment, my brain cleared. Hydrotherapy and mild exercise helped much. Best of all, I met a kind of doctor who explained that through certainly selfish and foolish, I had been seriously ill, bodily and mentally. It relieved me somewhat to learn that in alcoholics, the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects. My incredible behavior in the face of a desperate desire to stop was explained. Understanding myself now, I fared forth in high hope. For 3 or 4 months, the goose hung high. I went to town regularly and even made a little money. Surely this was the answer, self-knowledge. But it was not. For the frightful day came when I drank once more. The curve of my declining morale and bodily health fell off like a ski jump. After a time, I returned to the hospital. This was the finish, the curtain, it seemed to me. My weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failure during delirium tremens, or I would develop a wet brain, perhaps within a year. She would soon have to give me over to the undertaker, or the asylum. They did not need to tell me. I knew and almost welcomed the idea. It was a devastating blow to my pride. I, who had thought so well of myself and my abilities, of my capability to surmount obstacles, was cornered at last. Now I was to plunge into the dark, joining the endless procession of sots who had gone on before. I thought of my poor wife. There had been much happiness after all, but would I not give to make amends? But that was over now. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master.
Thank you, Lynn. And tonight's batting order will be Alyssa, Art, William, Christy, Rick, and Marilyn. And you can all go ahead and unmute now. And we got a lot of comments coming in tonight. So Alyssa, you have our first question. What was his next decision?
Renewing my resolve, I tried again.
Thank you. And Art, what happened to Bill when he became confident? 3 sentences.
Some time passed and confidence began to be replaced by cocksuredness. I could laugh at the gin mills. Now I had what it takes.
And as Trish said, there will be lots of comments tonight. Is Bill's confidence being replaced by cocksureness more of his pride and ego?
And William, why did Bill enter the cafe?
One day I walked into the cafe. Telephone.
Thank you. Christy, was he conscious of taking the first drink?
In no time, I was beating on the bar, asking myself how it happened.
Thank you. And Rick, as he felt the effect of the whiskey, what did he tell himself? 2 sentences, please.
As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time. But I might as well get good and drunk then. And I did.
Thank you.
Is this
And Marilyn, sorry, Jamie.
is this something that you have ever experienced?
And Marilyn, coming to you, how did he feel the next morning?
Remorse, horror, and hopelessness at the next morning are unforgettable.
Have you ever felt this way the next morning?
And Alyssa, back to you. Was he able to fight?
The courage to do battle was not there.
Have you ever felt defeat?
And Art, what was his brain doing?
My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity.
Have you ever experienced this?
And William, why was he afraid to cross the street?
I hardly dared to cross the street unless I collapsed and be run over down by an early morning truck.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. But it was scarcely daylight.
Thank you.
Have you ever felt this way?
And Christy, what did it take to still his nerves? 2 sentences.
An all-night place supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale. My writhing nerves were stilled at last.
Have you ever had to still your nerves in a similar manner?
And Rick, what did Bill realize when he read of another market crash? 4 sentences, please.
The morning paper told me the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought.
Have you ever had such a hard thought?
And Marilyn, for a brief spell, what did Bill consider doing? 2 sentences.
I should kill myself. No, not now.
During your drinking, did this thought ever pass through your mind?
Sure did. And Alyssa, what did Bill do to quiet the thought? 3 sentences.
Then a mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that. So 2 bottles and oblivion.
Have you ever sought oblivion as Bill did?
And Art, how much longer did Bill suffer the agony of alcoholism?
The mind and body are marvelous mechanisms, for mine endured this agony 2 more years.
Thank you. And William, did Bill steal money to drink?
Sometime I stole from my wife's slender purse when the morning terror madness was on me again.
Have you ever stolen money to buy alcohol?
And Christy, did Bill consider suicide?
Again, I swayed dizzily before an open window or the medicine cabinet where there was poison, cursing myself for a weakling.
Have you ever considered suicide?
Rick, did Bill go from one place to another? The geographical cures.
There were flights from city to country and back as my wife and I sought escape.
Did you ever believe that you would be better off some other place?
And Marilyn, did Bill come to fear for his life?
Then came the night when The physical and mental torture was so hellish. I feared I would burst through my window, sash and all.
Did you ever really fear for your life?
And Alyssa, back to you. What did Bill do with his mattress and why?
Somehow I managed to drag my mattress to a lower floor. Least I suddenly leaped.
Have you ever experienced such desperation?
And Art, what did a doctor bring Bill?
The doctor came with a heavy sedative.
Have doctors had to prescribe sedatives for you?
William, what was Bill doing the next day?
Next day, I found me drinking both gin and the sedatives.
Have you ever drank and taken sedatives?
And Christy, what did they do for Bill?
This combination soon landed me on the rocks.
Thank you. And Rick, what was the concern for and of Bill? 2 sentences, please.
People feared for my sanity. So did I.
Have folks ever feared for your sanity? Have you ever feared for your own sanity?
And Marilyn, had Bill's alcoholism progressed to where he could no longer tolerate food?
I could eat little or nothing when drinking, and I was 40 pounds underweight.
Has your alcoholism progressed to where you could not eat? Bill, being 40 pounds underweight, indicated he was suffering from malnutrition and in a very serious state of deteriorating health. He was literally dying at this point.
And Alyssa, back to you. What did his brother-in-law and mother do for Bill?
My brother-in-law is a physician, and through his kindness and that of my mother, I was placed in a nationally known hospital for mental and physical rehabilitation of alcoholics.
Thank you. And Art, what treatments did they give Bill?
Under the so-called belladonna treatment, my brain cleared.
Keep going. Sorry, 2 sentences.
Hydrotherapy and mild exercise helped much.
Thank you. And William, a 2-part question. What was the best thing that happened to Bill at the hospital? And what did the doctor explain to Bill?
Best of all, I met a kind doctor who explained that though through certain selfish and foolish, I have been seriously ill, body, mind, and mental.
Thank you. Has your sponsor explained this to you? The doctor was Dr. Silkworth, author of The Doctor's Opinion.
And Christy, what did it relieve Bill to know?
It relieved me somewhat to learn that in alcoholics, the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects.
Does it relieve you to know that you are normal except for the effect that alcohol has on you?
And Rick, did Dr. Silkworth help Bill understand why he had been unable to stay stopped?
My incredible behavior in the face of a desperate desire to stop was explained.
Thank you. And Marilyn, when Bill believed that he understood the problem, how did he feel?
Understanding myself now, I fared forth in high hope.
Thank you. How long did that knowledge keep him sober, Alyssa?
For 3 or 4 months, the goose hung high.
Thank you. And Art, he was even able to do what?
I went to town regularly and even made a little money.
Thank you. And William, does knowing what is wrong with us keep us from beginning to drink?
Surely, this was the answer: self-knowledge.
If a person knows they have cancer, does that keep the cancer from progressing?
Christy, how well did the self-knowledge work for Bill?
But it was not, for the frightful day came when I drank once more.
Thank you. And Rick, was Bill's judgment and physical health in rapid deterioration?
the curve of my declining moral and bodily health fell off like a ski jump.
Thank you. And Marilyn, what did Rick do? Or what did Bill do?
After he died, I returned to the hospital.
Thank you. And Alyssa, what did Bill believe this trip to be?
This was the finish, the curtain, it seemed to me.
Thank you. And Art, what did Lois learn from Dr. Silkworth?
My weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failure during delirium treatments, or I would develop a wet brain, perhaps within a year.
Thank you. William, what did Dr. Silkworth tell Lois her two options were?
You will soon have to give me over to the undertaker or the asylum.
Thank you. Did they have to tell Bill, Christy?
They did not need to tell me.
Thank you. Rick, was he almost looking forward to the end?
I knew and almost welcomed the idea.
And Marilyn, what did this fact do to his ego?
It was a devastating blow to my pride.
Thank you. And Alyssa, back to you. Had Bill proved that he could make things happen in his life?
I, who had thought so well of myself and my abilities, of my capacity to surmount obstacles, was cornered at last.
Thank you. And Art, could he see where he was headed?
Now I was plunged into the dark, joining that endless procession of sluts who had gone on before.
Thank you. And William, of whom did Bill think? 2 sentences, please.
I thought of my poor wife. There has been much of happiness after all.
Thank you. Christy, what did he really want to do?
What would I not give to make amends?
Thank you. And Rick, did he have any hope left?
But that was over now.
Thank you. Marilyn, what did Bill feel?
No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity.
Have you ever felt this way? And another comment, this is where Bill took step 1 as we understand it today.
Thank you. And Alyssa, you get the first, and you had the first question and the final question. What did Bill completely surrender to? And read the rest of the paragraph, please.
Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. All call was my master.
Thank you. So you guys can all put your hands down, and we are now open for comments, questions, spiritual experience, or anything that you have to share on this portion that we just read. And Christy, your hand is still up. Did you want to come in?
Sure. Sorry about that. I just think that the way he describes his complete demoralization and hopelessness is so accurate for the way I felt. Going to bed, wondering if I would wake up. Am I going to wake up tonight? I've had 9 glasses of wine and I'm going to take Benadryl and go to sleep. Is this going to be the day I don't wake up? My brother had told me a story about his best friend's sister who used to drink a lot, and one day they couldn't find her, and her father went over and found her dead in her bed with half-drunk beers all through the house. And I thought, is this going to be me? And there were days I kind of hoped it would be me, because then it would be over. And then there were days I felt fear, and I didn't want to not wake up the next day. It's truly by the grace of God that I survived. And by the grace of God, honestly, that I woke up in time to go to work half the time, because I'd black out or pass out before I set my alarm clock. So I was blessed beyond belief to wake up in enough time to get to work every day. I was never late for work because of it. So that's just a blessing beyond belief. But I can really identify with his hopelessness. Thanks.
Thank you, Christy. Pinky.
I'm Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. I could definitely relate to the attempts at taking my life. There was countless times where I had used prescriptions, and honestly, it's a miracle I'm here today. And that was over a 10-year period. But this reminds me, the part where, and Jamie pointed it out in the comments, his step one, you know, I remember my step one, that hopelessness. I woke up on a cement slab in my own vomit. I didn't know how I had gotten there. I was trapped and I couldn't get out. I was at the mercy of the law. And, you know, that was when I finally accepted that I was powerless over alcohol and my life was completely unmanageable. And that brought me into AA. You know, I had tried AA back in 2013, but at that time there was only in-person meetings and I was not comfortable in a room, mainly because it was men and I had an issue with them at the time. And, you know, the fear was all over me. That was running my life, besides self-will. And, you know, so I remember coming home and just embracing my children. And that next morning was when I found my other home group, and 5 months later I found you guys, my other home group, and you know, life has never been the same since. And it was that first step. That's the only one I needed to do perfectly, and it took what it took. And I only share that because that's my experience, right? And it tells us to relate to other people, to share our experience, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And I'm thankful because today I can use that, right? That's where I don't want to go back to. And I have the tools that keeps me from going back there today. You know, I can't imagine putting anything in my body that will mind or body alter me, because I can't stand when I'm irritable or discontent. I need to uncover what the fear is. I need to uncover like the character defects that are coming out. So I'm thankful for that today, that I have the ability to recognize those, because I never could before. Everybody else was always wrong. And I had no humility. My mind was not opened, and I wasn't teachable. And today I can say those things about myself that I am. And life is so much better. You know, I can truly say that because of that step one, and I'm able to live a happy, joyous, and free life today, and life on life's terms. So thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Alyssa. Hi, Nancy.
Hi everyone, my name is Nancy and I'm a recovered alcoholic, and yeah, it was really good reading this, and I love the way they explain what he went through, and I could identify with the no words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter remorse of self-pity. That was my bottom. That was my step one. And I was a blackout drinker. And I remember, you know, they say, you know, don't forget what brought you in, and don't forget your first drink or something like that. And I remember my first drink, and I remember what brought me in to the program. So, I'm continuously reminded of that coming to meetings and continuing to study and read. But, that loneliness and despair, and the self-pity, coming out of a blackout, my last drink, I couldn't even tell you what I drank, but I went into a blackout, and the last thing I had remembered, I was reading my children a bedtime story, and I came out of the blackout, and I was standing at my stove cooking scrambled eggs. And all I did was drop whatever I had in my hand, and I ran in the other room to see where my children were, and thank you God they were in bed, and I did not remember putting them to bed. I lost a period of time, and that was what brought me to my knees, crying out to God in such despair and hopelessness. And alcohol had me, and I could have burnt my house down, I could have killed my children, and that was my bottom. That was my bottom. I had stopped caring about myself a long time before that, but the thought of killing 2 little children just totally devastated me, and that is what brought me to my knees, crying out to a God that I knew nothing about and did not even have any idea, and just crying out to God to help me. And I was led into the halls of Alcoholics Anonymous after that. I was 27 years old, and I felt like I was 90. So that was my step one. But I also identified with the remorse, horror, and hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. And the courage to do battle was not there. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity. I mean, all of those negative feelings, I carried those with me constantly. And, going into work the next morning and just feeling that way. And I think it took 3 years after I got sober for my mind to slow down. My mind raced uncontrollably all the time. And, coming off the booze, I guess, is what slowed the mind down. I'll never know. I think it was a spiritual experience. But I just remember all of those feelings, all of those terrible, awful feelings. And, since I've gotten sober, I don't feel those feelings to that degree. And the feelings that I do feel, I'm able to, with God's help and the 12 steps and all the tools of the program, to deal with the other things. So there's a lot of yets in here for me, and that's why I keep coming and keep learning and keep studying, because I'm always learning something new. So it's good to be here tonight, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Nancy. It's so good to see you. William, come on in.
Thank you. My name is William Alcoholic, man. What a great qualification. And what it reminded me of when Bill wrote this book, he said, though you may be one person with this book in your hand, you can stay sober. Now I understand why, because I really identify with the pain of alcoholism that he went through. And I take a little story. My personal story is that I used to see this guy. He was like about 15 years older than me, right? So anyhow, I used to see him read the Bible all the time. You know, for like about 30 years, he would read the Bible. I seen him sit and read the Bible before he passed on. He would sit and read the Bible. So I played, you know, reading the Bible. You know, so yeah, he said every 5 years I see something that I didn't see before. So I read it through over and over again. So every time I get a different perspective, see things that I didn't see before. And that's the way here with this big book, you know. And definitely I identify with the story, the pain and suffering from alcoholism, you know, and I like the part, and all of it, I like all of it, but the part what he say, I used to happen to me all the time. I was going to the bar. I wasn't going to drink. I was just going to go there because I liked the camaraderie inside of the bar, you know. So I wasn't going to drink. Before I knew it, I would have a drink in my hand. I said, I might drink it, getting drunk anyway, and I just down and go into oblivion over and over again, you know. And one time my niece, she lived in Florida, and she loved me, and she would play these games with me when I go down to Florida. And she said, I'm gonna put you in the back seat of the car. You put some sunglasses on, and we're gonna ride through the town with the convertible down. You sit in the middle of the seat, you know, and people just gonna be looking. You know? Anyhow, she was a police officer, and she invited me to one of their parties when I was down there, and I went to that party. And that time I didn't drink, but I had a hangover that came out of that. My eyes were red and everything, you know, because I wasn't spiritually fit to be in there. But I went in there because my niece told me to go in there. But thank God I didn't drink, you know. But like they say, I tried a lot of things and never could finish nothing. You know, I always start stuff and never could finish it, you know. And definitely, I contemplate on suicide, you know. And I live on the 11th floor, right there. And I remember one day I was standing out there and I was thinking about it and stuff. And all of a sudden, I got some clarity. So what if you fall? If you drop down there and you hit that ground and you don't kill yourself? Nobody cares enough for you to push you in a wheelchair. Nobody cares enough to give you a glass of water. And I got on my knees and I crawled back in here, man, with all that fear inside of me. I crawled back inside. And thank God it didn't happen, you know. But he talk about what a maker of the mind is, you know, and when the disease take control of it, you know. And I'm just so grateful that none of that stuff happened. And I came around here, and I love his clarity that he had when he was drinking. You know, it took me some time coming to meetings and listening to people share it to begin to put the pieces together. You know, I'm still putting pieces together, you know. But his clarity about what he was going through was, when he wrote this, you know what I mean, helped me today, you know. And, I'm grateful for that, and I truly believe what he said. You know, you may be one person that's putting your hand, but look for somebody else. But you can stay sober with these stories, this story, and other stories in the book. You know, so I'm just so happy to be here. I identify with everything, 90% of it, golf and everything. You know, I bought a golf set, and let me tell you, that's one of the hardest sports that you could ever try to play with. I could never keep my eye on that ball. You know, every time I swing, I miss that little ball. You know, but I'm just happy, you know, that God seemed fit to bring me where I get to help because I thought because I have willpower, because I had did some things in life. Been someplace and did some things in life that I thought it was because of my willpower, you know, and I thought I could do that with alcohol, but it just didn't work. So I'm happy to be here and happy to know that, have that information, and know today and to be here with you.
Thank you, William. Marilyn, good to see you.
Hi, I'm Marilyn and I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to comment on, but I might as well get good and drunk. I always had excuses to get drunk. It was Friday night, I should get drunk. I'd quit Sunday morning, and if it was a birthday or something going on, then I had another excuse to get good and drunk. And I got good and drunk, and it talked about drinking to oblivion. That was me. Anytime I had booze, I would drink until I couldn't drink anymore, or there wasn't any. And I would actually make sure that there was enough alcohol before I drink, because I already knew that I couldn't stop. And I did curse myself many times, looking at myself in the mirror, because I had come to, this is also kind of emotional. I don't know if I said that, but I came to, I had that self-pity, and absolutely 100%. Alcohol was my master, and I could not get away from it. It just, well, it says alcohol, the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor. So cursing myself, I'd actually, the self-pity was there. I had come to AA. I was in and out of AA for 4 years, and I would look at myself in the mirror. I would pull my hair, and I'd say, "Why are you doing this? You know better," And I hated myself. I really hated myself, and absolutely 100% mental torture. Mental torture. So I could really relate to Bill's story, and the good thing about it is I'm sober now. I never want to forget where I came from. An old timer or somebody said one time, they said, if you ever forget your last drunk, then you haven't had it yet. Hopefully one day at a time, that I never ever forget where I came from. And this absolutely is reminding me of where I came from. I am a drunk, but I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I was drowning. I was drowning in booze. Anyways, thank you. And hi, Christy. I haven't seen you in a long time. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Marilyn. Hi, Jamie.
Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic, and so happy that all of you are here. Because if all of you aren't here, I got no place to go, and there's no hope for somebody like me. I love this part of Bill's story, and it is so relatable to me. No, I can't relate to the stock market. But I'll tell you what, I remember working in a machine shop the night John Lennon was assassinated, and that gave me a great excuse to drink for the next 5 years, because that emotionally devastated me. And that's how I drank. I would drink over stuff like that. All of these feelings, and especially in the comments that I came in with, I felt every one of those things, absolutely every one of those things. I wanted to touch on something. Bill just touches on it briefly in his story, where he went under the so-called belladonna treatment. And that's where he also had his great white light experience. Makes it sound like it's an easy treatment in his story. Belladonna treatment is not by any means an easy treatment at all. It is a series of drugs that they put you through that are psychotics, hallucinogens, all kinds of stuff, things that will dehydrate your body, things that are designed to put your body into shock and go through all kinds of horrible stuff. Doesn't sound to me like any fun. Now, I used to do all kinds of recreational chemicals, but it doesn't sound like a treatment I would want to go through. But somehow, through that, on Bill's 3rd day of treatment is when he had his great white light experience. Isn't it funny? And we'll get into it here in the next week or so, probably next week. We'll come across it in his story. It will also be the purest form of as he then understood his Maker. He unreservedly turned his will and his life over to his Maker at that time. So if you're interested in the article in the history of it, it's available on silkworth.net, and it's Bill W.'s 1934 Towns Hospital belladonna treatment by John Springer, if you're interested in that information. Doesn't sound to me like any fun at all. But you know, there's really nothing fun about the disease of alcoholism. I don't know about you guys. Yeah, sometimes the party was fun. Sometimes shooting a few games of pool was fun. Hanging out with a few people was fun. Until it wasn't fun anymore. And when I was commode-hugged drunk, or had to pull the car over, or was puking all down the side of the car, or in the back of somebody else's car, and they were mad as hell at me, it wasn't fun. One of the things that I always used to talk about was being the life of the party and still being the loneliest guy in the room. Because I know what that feels like. My moment came on September 3rd, 1990, when I was on an 18-day run. Yes, there were some non-conference approved chemicals involved as well. I don't talk about that too much in an AA meeting, but those non-conference approved chemicals were for one purpose, so that I could drink as much as I could. And myself and a couple of other people closed the bar with a couple of cases of beer and some of those other chemicals. And while we were sitting there about 4 o'clock in the morning drinking and doing these other chemicals, one friend held up a beer and said, "Man, this stuff is really killing us." And I looked at this pile of fluffy stuff in front of me and said, "Yeah, and this stuff is really killing us." And when I finally went to lay down, I felt that self-imposed prison that was brought on by my own disease. We talked about it last week, in Bill's story, the boomerang that turned on us. And as I laid there completely paralyzed in a bed, not able to gurgle a sound, wiggle a finger, move a muscle, or anything else but my brain working perfectly, being able to hear myself breathe, I knew that I had finally, after 23 years, met my match. That I could no longer do this. And I didn't realize this until COVID and sharing in meetings like this. I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago. It dawned on me, oh my God, this was my first step, second step, and third step, all in that moment. Because I knew I couldn't do it anymore. I knew I needed help. That was my second step. And I changed the words of the bailout prayer. Instead of "I'll never do it again," I changed the words to "I will do anything." Yeah, I went back to the bar that morning and I did a little more drinking. My plan was suicide. My plan was to drive off the mountain. But somehow God picked up a broken shell of a human being and brought me to you guys. And I've been here ever since, and it hasn't been necessary to pick up a drink because you guys have given me a pathway to follow, that it hasn't been necessary to do that. Doesn't mean life hasn't been painful. Doesn't mean there hasn't been moments where I've wanted to die in the journey. But what I have found in the journey is God will always meet me at the steps. Always, without fail. And if I seek God, I will find him. If I seek the solution through the steps, I will always find the solution. And what it will become is it will become another day of experience where I didn't drink and I didn't die. And in the last 33 plus years, the two most important days of my sobriety are the day that I took that last drink and checked into detox, and today. Everything else in between is some good days and some bad days, a whole lot of experience, but never one where it was necessary for me to pick up a drink or any of those non-conference approved substances. And I'm so glad that Bill 12 steps us through this book. You know, later in the book, it talks about, towards the end, I believe it's in a vision for you, says, you may not have the advantage of meeting us. Well, the truth is, we're meeting Bill right here in his own story. Maybe we can't physically reach out and shake his hand, but we are meeting him through this story. And if we're looking for our own alcoholism in this story as well, we're meeting ourselves as well. Thank you. I'll share the time.
Thank you, Jamie. Xavier, come on in.
Hey, Xavier, recovered alcoholic. The darkness that Bill went through, I really relate to, and how it progressed from, and I think I noted this last week, in the beginning when he talks about, almost mocks the people that are committing suicide when the stock market crashed, and then not too long later, he's on the brink of suicide, and it reminds me how as my alcoholism progressed, it got worse and worse, and it took more and more. And just like Bill's story, like it took a little bit in the beginning, and then it really did progress. And I remember some of my darkest times, like in and out of psych wards, in and out of hospitals. My mom used to come down to Chicago from Minnesota on the weekends in a bus. I think it was the mega bus back then, whatever it was, and be at the hospital bed again, like hoping I wouldn't die. And it was just like this normal thing. And that became my norm. And it's a really awful life. And even though I wasn't a suicidal kind, I was suicidal because I think human beings, myself definitely, can only take so much pain. And I know for me, I eventually had a breaking point. It didn't work. Therapy didn't work. I kept trying. I tried antabuse a couple times. That didn't work. I just drank through it. And eventually, like, this has to end. And I remember, like, how dark it got. And I really relate to when Bill just totally gives up. For me, it was essential because that giving up, like, was truly my ultimate bottom. And the only reason I'm here today is part of me wanted to survive. And the only reason I didn't commit suicide back then, I think, was probably a combination of wanting to survive, and I didn't want to kill myself so my mom would be upset. And I'm grateful I was able to get through that dark time. Today when I see people relapse, whether it's a sponsee or somebody else, you know, I know later in the book, and we'll get to when it talks about drinking and, you know, if we don't think we're an alcoholic, we should probably try some controlled drinking. But I always just hope whatever they need to do, if they do have our affliction of alcoholism, that they survive it. Because if you don't survive, like, you're, you know, of course, end up in the ground or in prison if you commit a crime. But if you can get through it and keep coming back, then one day the miracle does happen. And I'm grateful that no matter how many relapses I had over the years, in AA as well, I kept coming back because I knew that there was something here. And no matter how drunk I got, I couldn't deny that I had some relief that I'd never had before. and Alcoholics Anonymous. So I just wouldn't give up no matter what, and that's one of the reasons I'm alive today. So I'm really, really grateful for this program, and I think it could help the most hopeless, sad, dark people, in this planet. And it truly is a miracle to be here for all of us. So with that, I'll pass. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Xavier. Hi, Rick.
Hello, everyone. Rick Alcoholic. Good to be here. This self-knowledge I get from you guys in this book here, and doesn't work without you guys, though. I remember leaving a detox and then going to a rehab in the 80s. And I came from the detox, and then came out of the detox. So the day before, a woman came to me and said, "There's this rehab. It's Spalding Rehab in Boston, Massachusetts." And I said, "Nah, I'm good. I don't." And she said, "If you don't go, they won't pay for this detox, your insurance." And I said, "Well, I have to clear my employer." They said, "We already have." I was angry. And because I thought everybody would know. Like it talks about it to the employers. But anyways, that's not where we're at tonight. And so I went to the rehab. And showed us all kinds of videos, counseling and all that, what alcohol does to the body. AA meetings came in there, and when I was in there, I couldn't fathom why anybody would give up their time and come and talk to us, these AA folks, that's why I still wasn't in my head. And today I'm very grateful for stuff like that. But anyways, but before I left the detox, I said, "What did you give me that helped me right away like that?" They said, "We gave you a Valium." I said, "What kind?" I think they said Librium. That was the self-knowledge I took with me and locked it in my head, because I knew it is something that I could use. Those days or weekends or days I drank too much, and I didn't want to suffer through the shakes. I wasn't quite getting DTs yet, delirium tremors. Always scheming and plotting and lying and all that, even when I, always scheming and plotting. It's where this disease took me. I managed not to drink for 5 years. When I came out of that rehab in the 80s, and but yeah, man, I used the excuses the 80s, everybody's getting high, everybody's doing cocaine, and I did. In 1991, I started drinking again. I went to a race with some guys, and came home. My wife's looking at me, and I told her, "How old do you drink at those things?" Didn't quite believe me, and I did. I believed me. So it went on. I found the Valiums. I could get them. I lied to a doctor that I told him it was because of my career. And she did. She prescribed. I didn't ask her for them. I knew if I went in there lying to her, she would prescribe me something like that, and she did. And I could find them on the street. Not on the street, but in different ways. I knew other guys that had it. "Hey, Rick, we're getting about 500 hits. You want in?" "Yeah, sure, count me in." Don't even ask, just always count me in. Always lying. ended up drinking both sedative and alcohol. And when I came to AA in 2008, from another detox, in 2009, another detox, all while I'm going to AA, just sitting there, really. I was angry. I said, I wasn't working anymore. It's not until I got into Alcoholics Anonymous and started to do this work, I'm understanding now, no, you were drinking and drugging, man. That's all you were doing. That's drinking and drugging. So today, I said I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to my higher power. I'm very grateful to the man that walked up to me and says, look, kid, you need an alcohol. You need a sponsor, and I'll sponsor you if you want. It's a guy I would have never, ever, I know I never would have sat with and drank and gone out and got drunk with. Are you kidding me? A UMass professor? Really? I love this freaking guy. I love him to this day. I say good morning to him every morning. He's gone now. And the suicide thing. I would hear stories like that. I still go to suicide funerals. Went to one not long ago. I went to one where the family, some sat over here, some sat over there, some sat over. So that told me something. I remember I thought I was too good. When I never thought of suicide, which I didn't. I thought of suicide when I was almost 2 years sober. Over a freaking argument with my wife that I can't remember to this day what it was over. And if I'd have pulled off the suicide, I wouldn't be sitting here and I would be, why did you do it? We don't know. We wonder how many people go to their graves that way and nobody knows why. Because it's such a trivial excuse. We don't just drink when we have a trivial excuse. We may end up taking our lives. So here I stay. Started other meetings with others. I thought of doing one at a men's living sober house. That starts in December. Try to slow down that revolving door because I seen the same dudes come in and out of it. That's what I do. I do that to keep saving my life. And to try and help them. So for me, I can't. The last time I thought of a drink, when I was going to be alone some years ago, we had just moved here. She had driven away to go to Massachusetts by herself, and I didn't go with her this one time. She left the driveway. She made it out of the community. And I said to myself, ain't nobody gonna know. Ain't nobody gonna know. Put your car in the garage, shut off your lights, shut off your phone. I was scheming, plotting, ready to lie before I had one drop of alcohol in me. I was already planning it. So when my sponsor told me, when I was having a hard time with the fourth step, he says, look, dude, you couldn't drink on your 24-hour shifts. You couldn't drink when you were with your wife and family. I want you to write about the Rick, what you were, where your mind was at in those days. And that's where it got easy for me. The fear. The fear of life without alcohol. You know, everything got in my way. I don't want to live that way anymore. I didn't act out, but I should just scheme and plot a lot. And lie. I don't want that life anymore. So here I sit. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Good to see you. Hi, Kathy. Come on in.
Hi everybody, I'm Kathy, I'm an alcoholic. I'll try to be quick because I think the meeting's over, right? I'm sorry, I'm just getting used to the time here, but yeah, I really relate to this a lot. I've actually had a really difficult day and was thinking on my drive home today how I used to just couldn't wait to get home to drink after days like today, and you know, yeah, my day started out really difficult, and it just didn't get better. I prayed, sometimes it's not supposed to get better, I guess, but I related to a lot of the stuff where it talks about the remorse, horror, and hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. I just remember so well what it was like waking up in the morning or not even waking up, because I did a lot of non-conference approved. I love that, Jamie. I've been thinking about that ever since you said it. Did a lot of that as well. It enabled me to drink more. So I didn't sleep a lot, but I remember kind of coming to, I guess, and just being horrified and hopeless and not knowing how to get out of it, right? Yeah, it's crazy. Suicidalness has been a big part of my story as well. I've been on life support from attempting to take my own life, and I've been in and out of psychiatric institutions. About a year ago this time, I was in one here, and they gave me shock treatments, and all I really needed to do was stop drinking and using, and that was kind of my answer, right? But yeah, I don't know. I really relate to Bill's story. Like, I remember when I first read it, I thought, how can I relate to this old man from the 1930s? But it really helps reading it over and over and breaking it down by sentence, because it was just totally me. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. Like, that is like me, right? Yeah, like, it's just totally me, and I can't believe that, I know it's me, and yet I still think about picking up a drink today. Like, I don't understand it. So, yeah, I just don't get it. I've done it so many times over and over again. But, yeah, I just wanted to share, because I used to just come home and drink on days like today. And, yeah, I think I'm going to just try and go to bed, but yeah, anyways, that's all I have to share. Thank you guys for being here. I know that this afternoon, when my day was just, really not going sideways, I was just thinking I just need to get home and come on the meeting. So, thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you put your hand up and shared with us. Because that's how we get to know each other, by putting our hands up and by sharing with each other, by reaching out. And I'm glad that you decided to come and join us. Jamie, would you like to read our closing?
I would, but I feel compelled to say this first. And Kathy, very glad you're here. I'm so grateful each and every one of you are here. But God's put it on my heart to say this, and since some of the original core membership is here from when we started all of this. Yesterday was the second year anniversary of Rick's passing, who was the co-founder with me in this group. And something Rick always said, that wherever we happen to be at in our lives, whether it is our past or whether it's something that we are going through right now in this very moment. It's an experience that we are meant to have. It's all part of the journey. And it's going to lead us to what's next. It's going to lead us to where our growth is going to take us. It's going to lead us to staying God-centered, to staying message-centered, to continuing to grow together with one another. And that's a beautiful thing about what we do here. I love all of you, each and every one, and it's so good to see all of you, so thank you so much. On page 164, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And thank everybody for being here, sharing the time, being with us. And I love seeing people come in new. I love seeing people come back. And I just love sharing the meeting with everybody. And I'm glad that everybody was here tonight. But just because we're about to pray out doesn't mean we're done sharing. We're going to turn off the recordings, but then for those who still want to share or want to hang out, have fellowship, or if you haven't had a chance to share and you want to, we're going to keep going. We turn off the recording so that we can get it posted up to our podcast on our website and also now on our YouTube channel. But we will keep hanging out for as long as people want to stay with us. So we'll go ahead, we'll take a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms. And we'll take that moment, especially for those who may die tonight because they haven't found their way here, or because they found their way but they weren't ready. And what we do is, since we can't be around the table to hold our hands together, we hold our hands up in the screen, and that's our way of holding hands with each other. So here's your moment. Thank you. Who brings us from shame to grace if we let Him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, folks. Keep coming back.
Good night, everyone.